It's Uncovered. Welcome to Wednesday, July 24. I'm Anthony Davis. He is Ron Filipkowski. And together we uncover the Maga propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream media. Ron, I got a little nick on my ear and it bled so much, but I think I can probably take this off because there's absolutely nothing there. I don't know if you can see that.
Really?
Absolutely nothing. Yeah.
That's a nice bandage that you had there. Yeah.
Thank you very
Trying to
much.
show
Yeah.
solidarity with Trump, huh?
No, I just
No.
wanted to kind of overcook the fact that I got a little nick on my ear. I just wanted to milk the sympathy as much as I possibly could. Okay, so much has happened since you and I last met on
I'll say.
Wednesday last week, right? So, and obviously the big news is Joe Biden has decided not to seek re-election in November, and he immediately endorsed his Vice President Kamala Harris. And since then, there has been an outpouring not just of support and love and affection and energy for the Democrats, but also a financial push. They have raised over $100 million in just a few hours, literally. Tell us, how that kind of news, how you kind of took that news and digested it.
You know, I knew sort of the pundit class was going to be excited by this, but or at least stirred up. But I really didn't anticipate the level of intensity from the grassroots. I mean, they say like Trump is good for ratings. You know what? They need to say Kamala Harris is great for ratings
Right.
because people are so much plugged in. You know, they're watching cable news, YouTube podcast views are up, social media engagement is up. People are electrified by this, and it's no slight whatsoever to Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden was doing everything that he possibly could at his age, but I think there was just a hunger for Democrats and a desperation for energy, for enthusiasm, and it's tough to get that out of an 81-year-old guy, you
Well,
know?
it's tough to get it out of a 78-year-old guy in Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
And Donald Trump, as we can obviously tell, is going much slower. He's not doing the rallies and the events and the types of things, playing a lot more golf because naively he thinks that he had it in the bag when Joe Biden was running for re-election. Now that Kamala Harris is in, he, because of his kind of his inbuilt racism and misogyny, he just assumes that he's going to win because Kamala is not able to win a presidential race. How wrong he is, Ron.
He's very wrong. I think he really thought he had it in the bag after the debate and then the shooting. You know, he really believed that the shooting was going to propel him
Yeah.
to victory and that he had it in the bag. And what did he do after that? I mean, he wasn't really badly injured. He did nothing. I mean, he just got off the campaign trail, started playing golf, was resting on his laurels, and then this happened. And then he immediately set up this North Carolina rally he's doing today. That was not on his schedule,
Right.
but he decided he needed to get his butt off the golf course, or his campaign advisors did. Look, I don't talk polling. I don't pay attention to it. I just feel the energy. And I know that all of those undecided moderate voters were out there who said, we don't want to vote for Trump, but we don't think Biden can do 4 more years. I just got to feel that those people are taking a fresh look at Kamala Harris. And by the way, she's having a great week.
She really is. I just want to kind of allay fears that, because there was a lot of conspiracy theories put out by the far right that Joe Biden was forced out and that, his puppet masters made this decision for him. And I don't believe any of that to be true. I think that, it's so funny, isn't it, how people project. If you're not a very good person yourself, you tend to project that other people are not good people. Joe Biden is a really good person. He is not a despot. He is not an egomaniac. All those criticisms that, he's only running again because of his ego, is just so wide of the mark. If you know anything about Joe Biden, you know that is simply not true. And here, I think that he clearly took counsel from, close advisors, as well as his wife, most importantly. And they realized, especially because he has COVID, and, as I know from having it for 10 days recently, knocked me right out. it makes the idea of campaigning as hard as he was going to have to campaign, to beat Donald Trump, just way too much to manage. And so I think he did absolutely the right thing, a selfless decision, and he's also endorsed a candidate which now, because the criticism of Kamala Harris is that she hasn't done anything, she's a silent partner, she's a lazy VP. None of that is true, but being VP is a very difficult job. You can't upstage the star. Now she's going to open her wings, and we're going to see a very different Kamala Harris now that she's been endorsed by her boss.
I agree. And she has the A team now too. That's the other thing is like when you're VP, you don't get the A team, you get the B team. Sometimes you don't even get the B team because the first lady gets the B team. You end up with the C team. And of staff, I'm talking about, and advisors and speechwriters and all that. Now she's got the A team and she's got all the trappings of the office. But I want to go back, and I do think she's going to rise to the occasion. But I want to go back to Biden. I mean, Biden has made the right choice for the party and for the country 5 presidential elections in a row. Let's go back to real quick. 2008, Barack Obama is trying to become the first black president, which is a huge ask. Many people thought it wouldn't happen. It wasn't going to happen. And he needs an establishment, and he also didn't have a lot of experience in Washington. He needed an old guard establishment, white guy, let's face it, to balance that out, to ask the American people to elect the first black president. And Joe Biden stepped up and was willing to do that and then stuck by him. Then let's not forget in 2015-16, he wanted to run for president. I mean, and he was Barack's VP, and that would have been a nasty, expensive, difficult primary between him and Hillary.
Yeah.
But he stepped aside for Hillary. And that was hard for him to do. That was painful for him to do, but it was the right thing for him to do for the party, arguably, and for the country. So then he comes out of retirement in 2020 to take on Trump, which he didn't need to do. And that brought up all kinds of stuff with Hunter and everything else that would never have happened had he not done this. And he truly stayed in this because he did truly honestly believe that he was the right person to take on Trump again. But then when reality set in and he sort of did some soul searching and got COVID and was at home getting his thoughts, he changed his mind. So I think 5 straight presidential elections in a row, Joe Biden put the country ahead of himself.
Tonight, he will be addressing the nation. And so hopefully he's, well enough to do that. But it kind of doesn't matter anymore now. He actually said that I now want to just focus on running the country, which, we're all grateful for. We should not forget that Kamala Harris has now not just been endorsed by Joe Biden. Hakeem Jeffries, the Senate leader as well, the Hillary Clinton has come out and lent her support. I haven't really seen anybody apart from Barack Obama, who's kind of playing his cards close to his chest. But of course, he's going to come out for her, once she wins the nomination. And maybe we should explain to people the process now of Kamala Harris winning the nomination, because the Democratic conference or the convention will be in August. There's 2 ways of doing it, isn't there? There's a vote or a roll call. Just explain that.
Yeah, well, she's already secured the votes of the delegates who have already switched. See, there is no nominee. People are saying like Joe Biden is the nominee and he stepped down. There is no nominee until the convention. You have to be nominated and then the delegates vote, and they're supposed to vote according to what was voted on in the primary. But since that candidate has said, I don't want you to vote for me, I'm releasing you, and I would like you to vote for Kamala Harris, that's what they're free to do. So there's no ballot issues. I saw the Republican Party is planning on filing some kind of frivolous lawsuit about the money, saying that Harris can't take over the campaign account, which is ridiculous because she's part of the campaign, was part of the original campaign account. So yeah, it's good. The convention is going to go very smoothly. Everyone has endorsed Kamala. The delegates are free to switch their votes. And the only person, like you said, prominent person that I can think of is Barack Obama. But I think number one, I think he was probably not wanting to influence anybody else. I think he wanted everybody else to come to their own conclusion. And I think it also would have given off that perception that he's the kingmaker controlling things behind the scenes.
Yeah,
And he didn't want to give
he's
that impression.
Biden's puppet master. That's what
That's the
what they
last
say
thing he
about
wanted to
him.
do.
Yeah, of course. And also, Obama is very much the kind of the box office ticket, isn't he? And you really need to save him for nearer the end, because when he comes out, everybody listens. And so I think it's a good thing to kind of, hold him back just a little bit. And he knows that, he's not stupid. He knows he's a bit like Jesus, isn't he? Wherever he goes, people are completely taken by him. I really do think his election, I was thinking about it this morning, the 2008, and just what a moment that was and how it felt. And I think that if Kamala Harris was to win the election in November, it is going to feel the same, only more. Because, of course, this notion that she's not just a black person, but a female person too. And when you put those together, a black female that is blowing the glass ceiling into the ether. And let's talk about how the MAGA Republicans have been handling that, because they are not happy about this, for a start. Donald Trump has been rage tweeting in the middle of the night about it, or truthing, I should say. And a lot of his surrogates and a lot of the senators and Congress people have been coming out and claiming that she is a DEI hire. And they are very much going down the race issue and the misogyny issue. They are really now going to show their true colors, aren't they?
Yes. And that was another reason why I thought she would be a good, the best replacement for Joe Biden, among a lot of other things. Because after the debate, when all the firestorm happened, we had a lot of internal discussions at Midas between us. And I think we all came to the consensus that, we each one of us had our favorite person. If Joe decided not to run, that we wanted, we all had different people. But I felt that, if it was Kamala, knowing MAGA and Trump like I do, and how racist and misogynist they are, I thought she would bring out the worst in them. She would bring out the most vile, nasty, disgusting sides of them, because they wouldn't be able to resist. They would try. Yeah. They would try to be good, but they're not capable of it. No. And what I told the guys is when she was the pick, I said, look, we are going to put out every nasty, disgusting comment and clip everything that they say that's nasty. We're going to put it out because we want people to see exactly who these people are, because it's all going to come out, and it's going to be even worse than during Obama.
It made me realize, I don't think America is racist and misogynistic to the tune that the Republican leadership are. And we talk about being misrepresented. I think Republican leadership, I think Republican newscasters, people who hold power, the reason they got that power in the first place is because of their by nature, the types of people they are. And invariably that goes hand in hand with being bigoted in some way. Let's start with the clip of Sean Hannity. Of course, he's very much leading the charge on this, isn't he? He really is quite a disgusting creature. This is what he has to say about this whole thing.
As of tonight. Now, tonight also, the Democratic Party, you need to understand what's happening here. This is Kamala's honeymoon period. She is experiencing a sugar high, a feeling of relief and enthusiasm that the guy that can't walk and talk, that's dazed and confused, the guy that mumbles and bumbles and stumbles, thank God it's not him. It's a honeymoon. It's a sugar high. But mark my words, it will be short-lived.
Short-lived or short-lived, Sean Hannity?
Yeah, he's first of all, there's two things here about Hannity. Number one, he's Trump's therapist. He's probably the show that Trump watches the most on Fox. He watches it pretty religiously every night, and Fox and Friends in the morning. And so, he's talking to Trump right there. He's talking to his audience. Obviously, he's trying to give Trump a little therapy, because Trump has been pretty stressed out. And he's saying, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. This will all die down. And also his audience. Hannity's audience, he has the oldest demographic in the Fox audience. Like, his average viewer is like white dude, 74 years old. That's the Hannity viewer. He almost has no viewers under 60. And so those old white dudes are all freaking out at the prospect of a Kamala Harris presidency too. So again, he's like talking them down off the ledge. He's saying, you know, I know there's all this energy happening right now on the Democratic side, but everything's going to be fine. It's a sugar high. I mean, to some extent, sugar highs happen in politics in these kinds of situations, but I don't think that that's going to be the case here. I feel like the momentum is just going to keep building.
But there's only 100 days, Ron. I mean, that's the other
That's
thing.
right.
It's so late in the campaign to switch out the candidate. And whilst that might be a gigantic risk in some elections, it isn't in this election. Because really, I think you're right what you said at the beginning. Joe Biden was doing his absolute best, but at the end of the day, it was very hard to get excited about him. And Kamala Harris has, gives people every reason to get excited. What I find interesting, though, is that people, MAGA Republicans, and I'm going to show a clip of another congressperson in a moment, they cannot get their head around why people like you and I talk about the importance of it being a female and a person of color. They cannot comprehend why in America there are reasons to really push the race and gender of a candidate in this way. And if you don't understand the importance of it at this moment in history, then you're probably a little bit racist and misogynist.
They don't understand. They don't think it should be a factor in any way. I don't think it should be, of course, the main factor. It's not like you're just grabbing some random black woman to run for president.
Two things can be true. This is the thing. So
Yeah.
I think it is the main factor, but I think that you can't argue that she's not up to the job. She's already been the vice president. She was the DA, California prosecutor. She's had these great jobs that for a person of color and for a female, to get to those positions, you have to be twice as good as the men in order to get to that position. That's who she is. And so that's why, for my money, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm obviously very passionate about this, that you have to push the fact that her race and her gender is as important as her ability to do the job. Two things can be equally true.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd go that far. I really don't. I don't think that
you're a
I don't
former
think
Republican. So
well,
of
no,
course
because
it's hard for
I
you.
don't see the campaign doing that either. I don't see the campaign making it the feature of the campaign, her race and gender.
No, but she is saying it in her speeches. I've watched 3 speeches in the last 48 hours, and she talks about it. She is proud of it. And
I agree with that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think she should be doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't think I don't think that the main thrust of the campaign should be, we have to elect a black woman.
No.
That's what I'm
I'm not
saying.
saying that either, but I'm saying that it's important to recognize the significance. And I think people that look back on 2008 and think about how America changed in the election of a black man, that's what we're talking about. I
think,
of change.
I think what she can bring to the table is that her life experiences and her perspective on America is different and reflects all of America or a more diverse section or a more underrepresented section of America. Look, I think you also can talk about that in the context of the whole administration. I mean, what we saw, and I've tried to pound this recently, especially since Kamala has been the candidate, is that the Trump administration was all white men. It was all white men, top to bottom, at every level, not just cabinet positions, but all the way down the line. And the Biden administration is so incredibly diverse. And again, all those people bring into that executive office building and the West Wing all of their diverse life experiences from every corner of the country. And that was not the case with the Trump administration.
Let's take a look at another congressperson giving the Republican giving their kind of version of events. Take a look.
Well, I think she's one of the weakest candidates I've ever seen in the history of our country. I mean, intellectually, just really kind of the bottom of the barrel. And from the standpoint of just who she is and the policies, the positions that she's taken, her failure to do anything in terms of the border, that sort of thing, I think it's just a failure from top to bottom. I think she was a DEI hire, and I think that that's what we're seeing. And I just don't think that they have anybody else. I just think that they're in real disarray.
It's just so obvious, when you hear them talk. It's like it's just not even serious anymore. Do you know when on the day that this news broke, Ben and I came on here and we did a live show, and he was talking about why it is that the media isn't calling out or has never traditionally called out this type of stuff and Trump's crazy postings and everything. And I had this idea that maybe in the back of everybody's minds, including the networks and journalists and whoever's behind this coverage, that they don't really think of Trump as a serious candidate. That he's kind of a joke candidate. He's become a pastiche of himself. And that, America is not going to choose somebody who has a record, as he did, of his 4 years, where the country was a disaster. And I think that there's some truth in that now, going forward, that anything that these MAGA Republicans come out and say, it just, because of Kamala Harris and who she is and how this has happened and the level of support for her, when they say stuff like she's just not up to it and she's a bad candidate, it just sounds even more ridiculous. And so they're doing themselves a disservice.
Yeah, well, I think that the professionals here, the advisors, recognize this problem. I mean, we saw Mike Johnson put out a memo to people telling them to stop doing this. This is not helping us. Do not go after her on the basis of her race and gender. This is not helpful. I think that the higher ups in the Trump campaign are fully aware of that, but they can't control their people. They have no control over these people that are like Harriet Hageman, who, when they say DEI hire, I mean, you can substitute the N-word or black, that, and then you get what they're really saying. And that's what she's just saying. She's only vice president because she's black. Yeah. But, by the way, Harriet Hageman replaced Liz Cheney, okay, who was immensely more qualified and more intelligent than Harriet Hageman, who was a nobody, who was a low-level staffer, who is only in that position because Liz Cheney stood up to Donald Trump. That's the only reason Harriet Hageman is even able to give that interview, is because she sucked up to Trump when Liz Cheney would not. And here she is talking about Kamala Harris's qualifications. Unbelievable.
We're going to hear and discover that the MAGA Republican response to this candidate is going to be the one-trick pony that helps them to lose the election.
Yeah.
Because they can't shake it off, whether they are, whether they have racism in their bones or whether they have chauvinism in their bones. I just maintain that it's not the public that are the people that are, too racist and misogynistic for Kamala Harris to succeed. It's not the public. It's these leaders. They're so institutionalized into a world of old white men that it's too much of a stretch for them. Meanwhile, just go into the workplace, go to the grocery store, see what real life is like, and you'll understand why America is ready for Kamala Harris.
And they're also coming out with this attack line that she, quote unquote, slept her way to the top. That she had wealthy, well-connected boyfriends when she was younger that helped her sort of move up the food chain, which is, it's just so insulting and repulsive and objectionable. This is an accomplished woman. This is an intelligent woman. It's just, and I think this is just, look, Trump's worst demographic was suburban women. I mean, aside from black women, just suburban women in general, even white women in the last election. It's what cost him the election in 2020 was suburban women. And this is the tactic that they're going to use. She slept her way to the top. Yeah. This is going to help them win back those lost suburban women vote. I don't understand what they're doing.
It's going to expose Trump and his people as being so old-fashioned and so out of touch, and it's they're actually they'll lose the election for themselves. I really don't think they know how to handle this. Stephen Miller, one of Trump's big advisors, is literally schmelting at this news. Let's take a look at him.
They held a primary. People, they had ballots. They filled out circles. They went to the voting booths. They spent money on advertisements. And as President Trump said, the Republican Party spent tens of millions of dollars running against Joe Biden. Now they just woke up one morning and said, never mind, we're canceling the entire primary. We're getting rid of our candidate, and we're pretending the election has never even happened, and we're going to let donors handpick a new nominee.
This is my new thing now. Anytime we come out the back of a video like that, a wry giggle. They can't keep it together, Ron.
I mean, there's a couple things here. Number one, you hear the panic and the fear. I mean,
yes.
This was his reaction like the night that this all happened. That was the clip. And he's just because they have this whole playbook gamed out for 2 years to run against Biden. You know, he's senile, he's this, you know, the clips of him walking, shuffling around. I mean, they had this whole plan, and they had all these commercials in the can and all these clips and ads ready to go. And what they're upset about is that the whole rug just got pulled out from under them, and they're having to shift gears 4 months out, and they don't know what to do. They don't have a plan. So that's the first part of that clip. But the second part is this: the Republicans are obsessing over supposedly how unfair this process was and how she's anointed and all of this and that. The bottom line is the American public does not care. Every poll shows this. They don't care about the process of how the Democrats arrived at their candidate. What the polls showed is that the American public overwhelmingly wanted different candidates. They did not want Trump, and they did not want Biden. They wanted fresh faces. They wanted somebody new. And they don't care how we got here. They're just glad we're here.
The issue, I just wanted to say two things, actually. I watched one of her speeches this morning. I think it was live. And she said a great thing, you know. She talked about Project 2025. And I'm so pleased that she's already starting to talk about that, this insane plan to bring down American institutions and rebuild them in the image of Donald Trump. Terrifying. Heritage Foundation authored 900 pages of crazy far-right Christian nationalist propaganda. So she's talking about it. She said this great line. She goes, "Can you believe they wrote it down?" And I thought that was really clever. The fact that, you know, normally you find this stuff out by stealth, but she made the point that the Republicans have actually written it down. They are telling us who they are. They are telling us what they plan to do. And she is going to rinse them over this. I'm sure of it.
You know, I also think that they did this and they came out with that Agenda 47 in response to the criticism. They were aware that the criticism of Trump was that he didn't have any policies, and he didn't have a policy agenda last time.
Well, he wasn't expecting to win.
And he didn't have one this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went to this thing, they went to Heritage, and they got these guys together and they said, we need policies, you know, crank some out for us. And they did. And then they put them up on their website, you know, and they were all, look, we got policy now. And then the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
When people read the policy, they're like, holy crap, look at all this stuff in here. And now they're like, oh, wait a minute. No, that's not our policy.
Well, they tried to rebrand it, didn't they? They were like, it's not Project 2025, it's Agenda 47, right?
It's the same thing.
But Donald Trump hasn't read either of them. This is the thing. He's just not interested.
He doesn't know any of it. This is why I always wanted him to be asked policy questions from his Agenda 47. And I've on Twitter listed many questions that come straight from his policy stuff. I've been doing that for 2 years now. Nobody ever asks him policy questions. But yeah, you couldn't, if you went, you know, line by line through his own Agenda 47, he couldn't tell you anything about any of it.
Wouldn't it be nice if instead of them having to pivot to attack Kamala Harris instead of attacking Joe Biden, that they just presented their policies and said, this is what we stand for, and allow people to vote for them, right? Remember, like in the olden days of a democracy.
You know, the funny thing is, like, they're still attacking Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Like every day, I laugh. You know, I watch their shows and their media and their social media, and they're criticizing Biden for this and that. And I'm like, go ahead, like, let him be the lightning rod. Let all your energy continue to be on Biden while Kamala's over here winning, you know?
It feels really good at the moment. It just feels like something is going to shift or has shifted. And I think, to really try and encapsulate the mood is proof that Joe Biden did the right thing and that Kamala Harris is the right candidate. It maybe felt a little bit too much of a squeeze last time, relying on Biden to deliver the goods, knowing there were more debates to come, and knowing that he had struggled so much with the first one. And now all that uncertainty has gone. And I've been watching old recordings of Harris versus Pence when they had their showdown, their TV debates, and she just whooped him. She really is very impressive. And of course, the time that she interrogated Bill Barr in the Senate as well, and he just didn't have a leg to stand on. She is a very talented person, and I wish they would stop with this thing about the laugh. And I love the fact that the laugh now has been taken by the left, and they're like, well, make America laugh again, because that's what we need. And in fact, my translation of the criticism of her laugh is racism. She talked about her laugh. She talked about the cultural heritage of her laugh and her black and brown family. And so whenever I hear a criticism of her laugh, to me that's just more racism.
And I thought about this last night. I thought, what American president in the past was known for having an infectious laugh,
Yes.
Who was very boisterous, loved to laugh
Yeah.
out loud. And I thought Eisenhower was known for that. Eisenhower used to have these belly laughs, all the time, on camera, off camera. And so I sort of posted him last night having one of these, and I thought, no one said a word about Eisenhower's laugh.
Well, that's because he was a man and he was
Right.
white.
Right.
Okay, listen, we have to take a quick break. I want to come back and talk about the VP pick, potential VP pick for next to Kamala Harris, and also J.D. Vance, of course, who is Trump's VP pick. And I think he might want to change his mind in the coming days. That's next here on Uncovered. If, like me, you've got culinary taste but won't entertain restaurant prices, Cook Unity is the first chef-to-use service delivering locally sourced meals from award-winning chefs right to your door every week. And it's cheaper than other delivery options. Go to cookunity.com/uncovered or enter code UNCOVERED before checkout for 50% off your first week. Cook Unity is a great way to support local chefs and suppliers. Every meal is handcrafted by chefs and made in local micro kitchens, not large production facilities. Your food arrives fresh, never frozen, in packaging that keeps meals fresh in the fridge for up to 7 days. You can pick as few as 4 or as many as 16 meals per week. There are hundreds of dishes to choose from, and the menu is updated constantly. There's options for 7 different dietary preferences. Menus are posted 2 weeks in advance, so you have plenty of time to choose. Experience chef-quality meals every week delivered right to your door. Go to cookunity.com/uncovered or enter code UNCOVERED before checkout for 50% off your first week. That's 50% off your first week by using code UNCOVERED or going to cookunity.com/uncovered. If there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking, it's with ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. Pre-Alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Vacations, weddings, birthdays, and reunions, there's so much going on. Get the most out of your summer plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/uncovered to get 15% off your first order when you use uncovered at checkout. Pre-alcohol is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/uncovered and use the code UNCOVERED at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode. And you can find links to our sponsors in the description just below. Okay, Ron, let's talk VPs for a second. Should we start with J.D. Vance? Because, of course, he himself now has made a couple of truly awful speeches and kind of exposed himself as somebody that maybe Donald Trump might be regretting choosing. What's your take on that?
I think so. And I think what we talked about was that the far right, Donald Trump Jr., people like him, Jack Posobiec, other people, and Charlie Kirk, wanted Vance. He was their guy. And they really got in Trump's ear and I think gave him really bad advice. I do not believe it was his campaign team that wanted Vance. I believe it was the influencers that wanted Vance, and he sided with the influencers. It's clear that people like Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, it was very well known, Rupert Murdoch, none of them wanted Vance. But Trump sided with the far right nut jobs that have been in his ear at Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster and at rallies. That's who he sided with over the people who are much smarter than those people. And I think he's regretting it, especially now with a Harris pick, because, you know, the thing is, Vance brings nothing to the table. He doesn't expand their base in any way. He does not appeal to any voter outside the MAGA base. But Trump believed when he made the pick that the race was over, and he just wanted somebody that was going to be super loyal to him. And that's Vance. But since he picked Vance, it's just been one horrible disaster after another that has happened on the campaign trail.
Do you think that, I mean, A, is he able to switch him out? And B, do you think he will?
No, I don't think he is able, because he's already been nominated at the convention. So he'd have to basically take himself out. I don't think he is able. And I don't think he would anyway, because then he would have to admit that he made a mistake. And we know about Trump, he doubles down. You know, he doesn't ever admit he made a mistake. He wouldn't hesitate to throw somebody under the bus, but in this particular case, it would be throwing himself under the bus, not Vance.
He'll probably isolate him, won't he? He'll do that thing that he does instead of, like, you know, coming and talking to him and saying, listen, let's try a bit of this, bit less of that. He'll just end up isolating him. That's how he handles things.
That's what I said last night. I said, Trump is going to start making passive aggressive comments about Vance. He's going to start going, well, I probably wouldn't have done it that way, or I wouldn't have said it that way. He'll make these little jabs.
Yeah.
And then after he loses, he's absolutely going to blame Vance.
Right. So in a way, it's kind of good for him to have a fall guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's gonna blame Vance. And I can tell you, I mean, you know, Vance gave that terrible speech the other day where he was trying to joke about drinking Diet Mountain Dew and how the left is going to say that's racist. It was just a very low energy speech where, like, nobody clapped, nobody laughed. His applause lines, nobody laughed. And I said right after that, I said, you know, he was due to give another speech that night. And I said, I know Trump watched the first one and was pissed off and wasn't happy with it, because he doesn't like low energy. He likes entertainment, and Vance is very boring. And so I said, he's going to overcompensate. And sure enough, he went to North Carolina, flew to North Carolina, and gave a speech that night. And he was like yelling and screaming, like totally not Vance, because he was trying to, because he had Trump in his ear. And that's the other problem. You know, Trump is going to get in his ear and start telling him, do this, do that. And he's going to have to try and become somebody he's not.
Yeah, they're going to fall out, whichever way it goes. They're going to fall out. Let's take a look at that Mountain Dew moment. It's really kind of embarrassing. Enjoy.
It is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys. But
I love you guys as a get out of jail card for there not being enough of a reaction.
Like Jeb Bush was more exciting than that. He had more personality.
Right.
You know, it just reminded me of like Jeb Bush all over again, but like less reasonable. You know, he's not good. He's not a good people forget. I mean, I keep trying to remind people of this. He was running in a 4-person primary, Republican primary for Senate, and he was in 4th place, consistently at 13% before Trump endorsed him on his own, which is funny that we talk about DEI with Kamala. They do, because on his own merit, J.D. Vance was polling at 13% in 4th place. Trump's endorsement won him the Senate seat. So it's kind of rich that they would talk about the fact that Kamala Harris got to where she is in different ways, when we all know Vance is only here because of one reason, and that's Donald Trump, not because of the talent of J.D. Vance.
There was some analysis on CNN. I want to show this clip of Senator Andy Beshear, who he himself is a consideration for a VP to sit alongside Kamala Harris, right? Let's take a look at what he's had to say about J.D. Vance.
Democrat, but the moment I win, I take that hat off and I try to serve every single Kentuckian. It's why I go to every part of the state, why we've created jobs everywhere, because there's not a Democratic or a Republican job. There's just a community that need them and families that are improved by them.
Yeah, it sounds like you think you'd be able to help bring in some of those more moderate voters. But obviously, this race, if it shapes up the way it is looking right now, would be Harris and Trump at the top of the ticket. I want you to listen to what J.D. Vance said today, Senator J.D. Vance, at his first solo rally since he was named as Donald Trump's running mate.
This is not okay, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot, for 3.5 years, take a guy who clearly didn't have the mental capacity to do the job. Kamala Harris lied about it. My Senate Democratic colleagues lied about it. The media lied about it. Every single person who saw Joe Biden knew that he wasn't capable of doing the job. And for 3 years, they said nothing until he became political dead weight.
What's your reaction to that, Governor?
Well, first, he ought to call the vice president by her title. She earned it. She is Vice President Harris. But the second is they're grasping for straws. Listen, J.D. Vance is a phony. He's fake. I mean, he first says that Donald Trump is like Hitler, and now he's acting like he's Lincoln. I mean, the problem with J.D. Vance is he has no conviction, but I guess his running mate has 34.
Well, I'm glad you brought him up, because he just responded to something you said today when you are calling him phony this morning. You said that he ain't Appalachia, as he talks about his roots and growing up in Ohio but being raised in the summers by his grandmother in Kentucky, and he just responded to what you had to say. I want you to listen to that.
It's very weird to have a guy whose first job was at his dad's law firm and inherited the governorship from his father criticize my origin story. Like, yes, nobody gave me the governorship and nobody gave me a job because of who my father was. I'm proud of that.
He said, nobody gave me the governorship and nobody gave me a job because of who my father was. I'm proud of that. Obviously a reference to your own father. What's your response to those comments from Senator Vance?
Well, what was weird was him joking about racism today and then talking about Diet Mountain Dew. Who drinks Diet Mountain Dew? But in all seriousness, he ain't from here. He is not from Kentucky. Listen, this is a guy who would come maybe in the summers for some period of time, or to weddings or funerals, and then he claims to be from Eastern Kentucky, tries to write a book about it to profit off our people, and then he calls us lazy. And this makes me angry, but it especially makes me angry about our people in Eastern Kentucky. Listen, these are the hardworking coal miners that powered the Industrial Revolution, that helped build the strongest middle class the world has ever seen, helped us win 2 world wars, and he called them lazy, acting like he understands our culture and he's one of us. He's not. This is a guy who went out to Silicon Valley that's trying to be an everyman. He ain't one of us.
How do you think?
It's pretty easy to criticize J.D. Vance, isn't it? There's quite a lot to go on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what he's saying here is pretty evident, which is the fact that J.D. Vance wants to make it that he understands the white working class, the white rural working class, because he came from there. But here's the thing. He never went back, okay? After he joins the Marines and goes off to Yale and goes to college, he never came back into that community. He went to Silicon Valley. He went to go work for Peter Thiel. Andy Beshear never left that community, never left those areas. He dove himself. He does the work. He goes into those small towns and those small communities every single day, week after week. I follow him on Twitter. I followed him for years on Twitter. He's constantly posting things of him in little businesses in the middle of nowhere, or helping people pick up trash after a storm. JD Vance has never done those things. And that's what this man is saying. That's why I said Andy Beshear is in reality the man that JD Vance pretends to be.
It's very interesting, isn't it? That JD Vance is one of those shapeshifters, right? Somebody who thinks that they can assimilate and people are going to buy it. But, you know, people who are from there, they can feel it. And so so many people are going to call him out as a phony. So I mentioned that Andy Beshear is one of the potential VP picks. And I want to talk about that in just a second. First, I just want to highlight one final thing about J.D. Vance, and this is where he goes on Hannity and claims that women who haven't given birth, like Kamala Harris, are childless cat ladies. Here it is.
What he's saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
Yeah, well, there's 46 previous presidents who've not given birth either. But that's not the point. The point is that to say this stuff out loud is so offensive to everybody up and down the country, females and feminists alike. And also Kamala Harris, we should say, is known by her stepkids and family as Mumala. So, you know, that puts pain to that story.
This has been a right-wing canard for a long time. This narrative, I've heard it many times over the years, whether it's at Charlie Kirk events or CPAC events. This is not new. He's just reflecting and he's just saying out loud what many of them say in their conferences, which is that their belief that all women in America, all women should give birth who are medically able. They should do it early and they should do it often. And if you don't do that, you're not really fulfilled as a human and as a woman. And therefore, you certainly should not hold elective office, because what they argue is that the fact that you don't have children makes you bitter and nasty and unhappy with your life. Therefore, you have no business holding elective office. This is what he's saying. That is why it is so revolting and so offensive and so ridiculous, and struck a nerve. That clip that I posted right there 2 days ago on Twitter now has, I think, 27 million views. And Cat Lady Twitter has been heard from, and they will be heard from in November.
It's just disgraceful. It's just like The Handmaid's Tale. I mean, that really is this dystopian future that they're planning for with Project 2025 and these extremist views like J.D. Vance has. It is a world that is so far removed from reality, and yet they're convinced that it's the right thing for America. They really have no idea how smart and thoughtful and progressive American people are as a whole, because they live and circulate in these bubbles. I've become a little bit of a stalker, just a silent stalker. I haven't posted anything, following Alina Hubbard's Instagram, which I find completely fascinating. Now, you'll know more about this than me, because you know where I'm going with this, don't you? She surrounds herself. If you were to look at her Instagram, you wouldn't even know that she's in politics, right? All of them.
You're absolutely right. We could go from every woman that's in Trump's orbit or on his campaign team, with the exception of Susie Wiles, the top person. But everybody else, if you follow their Instagram, yes, it's like they're Instagram models.
Right. They're always in like two-piece bikinis.
Yes.
They're always beautifully preen nails and toes and eyebrows and eyelashes. they all seem to have had their boobs done. They've all seemed to kind of had, Botox, and they're just looking so overly perfect and living these kind of fake Instagram lives where everything is a selfie and everything is like happy, happy, happy. And they've all got 2.4 kids and they've all got handsome husbands and they're all like celebrating their own success. And they are white and they are wealthy and they're living in a Florida bubble.
It's indistinguishable from like following a Kardashian or a Paris Hilton or any of those Instagram influencer types. There's no difference between following them and a Trump lawyer, or a Trump campaign official or spokesperson. He chooses them often. His new national spokesperson he just hired was an actress and a model. That's her experience. I mean, she's a great looking woman, and that appears to be the reason why he chose her.
Yeah.
And that appears to be the reason why he chooses how he chooses his attorneys.
Yeah.
And it's just, he doesn't do that with men. He doesn't surround himself with like attractive men. It's only the women. And so you're right. I mean, when you follow them on social media, I guess that it's hard for me to kind of convey that. It really is just like following any other Instagram influencer rather than a lawyer.
It's so weird. But also it's the tunnel vision for what America should look like. And they think that kind of lifestyle and that's look is the ideal. And I think this is something that permeates through the kind of Christian nationalist and far-right MAGA Republican movement at the leadership level. Is that because, here's the thing, Ron, the people that attend Trump rallies do not look like that.
No, I've certainly covered a couple hundred Trump rallies. That is not the case.
Right. So it's a very interesting divide between the haves and the have-nots, and I find it completely fascinating. But it is not a vote winner, and it is a minority group, and it is therefore makes Trump a minority candidate. And, J.D. Vance fits right in with that lot. Let's talk about Elon Musk and this announcement about the funding being withdrawn, because, he has laid his cards on his table kind of very recently. And we've been predicting for a while that he was going to come out for Donald Trump in full. And of course he has. But he suggested that $45 million a month was the amount that he was going to invest in the Trump campaign. Just tell us about this latest news.
Well, it's been, really interesting to watch this whole thing play out, which has played out over the last 10 days, which is, yes, we figured he was probably going to come out and endorse Trump, but he also said that he wasn't going to give him any money. And then he got caught up in the moment there after the rally shooting, and he announced minutes later on Twitter that he was endorsing him. And then the Wall Street Journal did this story that he was going to put $45 million a month into the PAC. Then yesterday, Fortune magazine breaks this story, which says, no, apparently Musk is backing off of this and he's not doing this. So when this was first posted last night, it was pretty hilarious, but the MAGA people were all pushing back saying, oh, no. This is fake news. This isn't true. He is going to give what he's saying is he's not going to give that to the campaign. He's going to give it to the PAC. Well, you can't donate that much money to a campaign. It's over the spending limits, the contribution limits. You can only give that much to a PAC. So it was always a PAC deal. It was never to the campaign. So I knew that was just BS what they were saying. But, we didn't hear from Musk last night. So Musk today was a guest of Benjamin Netanyahu at his joint address. He was in Congress this morning and got cornered in the hall by an ABC reporter who pinned him down on this and said, hey, are you giving the $45 million a month or not? And he said, absolutely not. So the question is, was he planning to do this and then he backed off after the Kamala Harris thing happened because now he's not sure if Trump is going to win? Or was the whole thing just made up? There's a lot of different ways you could go with conjecture.
It's very interesting. I heard him talking about his trans daughter and how he was so aggrieved at the idea. He was referring to her as dead because this is what, sometimes is used. The rhetoric is used in the trans community that your former name and therefore your former personality has died, and you are now, you've taken hold of your new identity. And he was so aggrieved by this and referred to his son as being dead and in not acknowledging his trans daughter. And he said something, I forget the words, maybe you can remind me, but he said something about he wanted to make it his mission to kind of stamp out the wokeness that instigated this. And that was very telling for me, that clearly this was very personal to him, that in a way, part of the reason why he wanted to kind of support Trump and fund Trump was because he felt that the wokeness that had caused his daughter's transgenderism was the reason why he was going to kind of get into bed with Donald Trump. Do you think they're connected?
I think that that's definitely part of it, because this is not the first time he's talked about this. I think that did have a big impact on him. I think, like a lot of people like him, they want to control everything in their lives, including their children and the people around them. And sometimes you just can't. And I think he felt like his son at the time, he felt like he should be able to make that decision for his son who wanted to transition, who was trans. And I think that he was so revolted or upset or disappointed in that, rather than just embracing his daughter and who she is, he decided to go in a completely different direction to where they haven't spoken to each other in many, many years, and they hate each other, really. And that's sad. It's sad that he's become this twisted, angry person driven by hatred. And it's led him to purchase Twitter, to bankroll people like Libs of TikTok, whose entire account is geared towards attacking trans people.
Yes.
It's really sad, but I think there's more to his support for Trump, including like tax breaks. And there's a lot that Musk wants from the US government.
Yeah. Well, control as well.
There's more to it than that. Yeah.
You don't pay $44 billion for Twitter and not want to have some control over people's thoughts. And I do think that, Musk's thinking, yes, he's very good at driving these businesses forward, and Tesla and SpaceX and everything else. But a certain amount of insanity goes with that. It's almost like, who else would be crazy enough to do some of the things that Elon Musk has done? And it's not always good crazy. There's often a lot of bad.
We saw some of that with Steve Jobs. I mean, it's the same kind of deal where Jobs didn't invent, the Mac. I mean, or the iPhone. Other people did, but he was the driving force behind the business model. And look, his personal life was kind of a little bit of a mess too. And he had a very estranged relationship with his daughter. So I don't think Jobs is like Musk in any way. I think he was not a great human, but a better human, I think, overall than Musk. But you do see the similarities between these quirky big tech guys having all these problems in their private lives.
Yeah. I would correct you on a couple of things, because I'm a little bit obsessed with Steve Jobs, is that he did invent the Mac and the iPhone.
He what?
He did invent the Mac and the iPhone.
All right, we'll argue.
But that's okay. No, that's fine. But you're absolutely right. You're talking about his relationship with Lisa. He created an operating system in her name. But most interestingly about Steve Jobs, which I think where there is a comparison, is that when he got pancreatic cancer, he refused traditional scientific medicine.
He did.
Because he felt that he had more of a holistic way of dealing with it, and unfortunately, he probably would still be alive now if he had listened to the scientists and the doctors.
I mean, I'm a Steve Jobs fan, by the way. I should say that.
Know. You also have a Mac now as well.
I was even more so now. Right.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I just want Woz to get a little love here.
I was. This is just an aside, but I was on the radio in England the night that Steve Jobs, it was announced that he'd passed away, and I did a 45-minute eulogy without any written or supportive material. I was crying on the radio. It was very embarrassing.
By the way, if he was alive today, I think he would be playing a huge role in defeating Trump. I think.
Oh, undoubtedly. Yeah.
That was a big loss for us.
Yes. Yeah, I understand. Okay, I want to have one more clip of Elon Musk. This is where he talks to ABC and talks about the fact that he was never planning on giving Donald Trump $45 million a month. So a lot of these people, they like to backtrack, don't they? Here it is.
Mr. Musk, are you still going to donate to Trump? Do you still donate $45 million? I'm sorry?
At no point did I say that I was donating $45 million a month to Trump. That was a fiction made up by the Wall Street Journal.
There you go. You heard it from the horse's mouth.
They just made it up, right?
Yeah,
no,
they
they got it from somewhere.
Okay, listen, we have to take another quick break, but I want to come back and talk about some more picks for VP to stand alongside Kamala Harris and a whole bunch more next on Uncovered. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you a tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. So, if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/uncovered to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/uncovered for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. So, Ron, we saw a clip of Andy Beshear earlier. Let's talk about these VP names that are being thrown around to stand alongside Kamala Harris. Maybe we should start with him. What's your feeling about him as a potential candidate?
I think each of the names being tossed around is a really great. They're all great. I mean, I'd be happy with any of them. I think they each have pluses and minuses, things that they bring to the table. As far as Beshear goes, look, it's the obvious. The fact that what is Kamala and what was Joe Biden's worst demographic? Rural, white, working class voters. We know that. So if she can pick up a few points in that area, this election's over. I mean, that Donald Trump has to win those by like 80%. And I think this is Beshear. Beshear has proven that he's one of the only Democrats, and there's not many, who can win rural, white, Southern voters, not just Rust Belt voters, not just rural, white, Michigan, Wisconsin voters, Southern voters. He trounced two different Trump-endorsed candidates in rural counties in Kentucky by big margins twice. So in that, and he's a good looking guy. He speaks well. He's down to earth. He's friendly. He's likable, all of that stuff. Probably the negative is he ready? We saw him in that interview. He was a little bit stiff. He had his lines that he wanted to deliver, but they weren't delivered smoothly. Is he ready for a national stage? That we don't know. So that's what I would say about Beshear. But I mean, honestly, I've loved Beshear for a long time. That's probably my first choice, but I'm also happy with the others.
I would say about him, and maybe some of the others too, that think about who they're standing next to. Because Kamala Harris is gregarious, and she is, very confident, and she's a very energized person and a very natural person. That's the other thing. You never think that she's faking it. She's totally being herself, which is very difficult to do, but she's had a lifetime of experience. And putting someone like Andy Beshear next to her, he is a little bit like a wooden doll, and he needs maybe another 5 years doing this, or getting a little media training or something, or just learning to shake it out. And so my worry is he will look more wooden next to Kamala.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the comparison to that would be like Al Gore with Clinton. Bill Clinton was the same kind of a personality, and Al Gore was more the stiff academic, kind of guy. So I think that maybe, you're always looking to sort of contrast yourself from somebody else. But I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm not sure that he's ready either. He might need to experience like a primary 2028, something like that, before he's ready. That's certainly possible.
My preference at the moment is Pete Buttigieg. I'm sure that might change, but the reason I say it is because he is so highly intelligent and is so incredibly articulate. And I think being articulate at speed is really important, not just for the VP debates, but as a supportive candidate going in, being able to kind of articulate the policies. And he never gets tongue-tied or confused. He is a very, very slick operator. But then there's the question, which is embarrassing for me to have to announce, but there it is, that people are saying, is America ready for an outwardly gay vice president? I mean, the guy's
Pete's
married
gay?
with children.
Pete's gay? I think there's a few problems. I mean, that's an obvious, the obvious issue is, look, Barack Obama was asking America to elect him as the first black president, and he smartly balanced that out by taking an old white guy from DC, right, to say, look, you only got to vote for one radical, Yeah. And I think that Kamala is probably thinking the same thing, which is, I'm going to be like the first female president, the first black woman president, and I'm going to have a gay running mate. Yeah. That might be a bit much to ask people to go for. But look, Pete, everything you said about Pete is absolutely true. And I also think he's an excellent candidate down the road. I think probably that the other negatives, besides what we just talked about, is the fact that he's from inside the administration. So now you're talking about two people from inside the Biden administration instead of one inside, one out. And look, he's never won a big election. He was the mayor of a small city, but that's it. He has never won like a statewide race or a congressional race. So that's also an issue.
It's so frustrating that we always have to bear in mind America's prejudice. That is, it's always a consideration.
Baked in, right?
Baked in. Such a shame. Kelly, I forget his first name. Who? Tell me about him.
Oh, yeah. Mark Kelly from Arizona.
Kelly. Yeah.
I mean, the pluses, the astronaut, obviously white guy, moderate guy, really good on foreign policy. The other thing is he's very strong on Israel supporter. And, if there's one thing, and now this is the same with Shapiro, I'll say, is that if there's one part of the Democratic base that is nervous about Harris, it's the Jewish contingent, because she's made
the fact she has a Jewish husband.
Yeah, I know. Her husband's Jewish, and then if she takes Shapiro, it's like a Jewish husband and a Jewish running mate. But no, I mean, she's made some statements in the past that are not, where she's just not completely all in on supporting Israel. And I think that although she supports the Biden policy, but I think that there's some concern there. And I think that, you take a guy like Kelly, who's very pro-Israel, but of course that could also alienate part of the base. But the other big part, of course, is Arizona. He won Arizona in by a pretty big margin in the Senate race. And Arizona is a critical state for both candidates. And so I think that he could really, really help Kamala do very well in Arizona. So I think that that's another plus for him.
Anyone else from the list take your fancy?
Well, we got Shapiro, of course, the Pennsylvania governor, who I think is another great choice. Very bright, very well spoken. Obviously, Pennsylvania is it really could come down to Pennsylvania. This election really, really could. And it's just a critical state. Shapiro just won big in his governor race. He was attorney general before that. So obviously the belief in the Trump camp in picking Vance was picked for Michigan and Pennsylvania. That's why Vance was picked. Trump believed that he would really help him in those two states. But I think Shapiro would offset that, offset some of that, especially in Pennsylvania. And he's a problem solver. I would say the negative would be not well known nationally, and not a ton of political experience, no Washington experience. But the other negative would be this pulling him out of that governor's seat. And this is the same thing with Kelly. You're taking Kelly out of the Senate, and that's a crucial seat. Same thing with Shapiro. You're pulling him out of the Pennsylvania governorship, and putting that seat at risk in a special election. And that's a little dicey. And I don't think they would care about that with Beshear. See, they don't really care about the Kentucky governorship. That's not as important as the Arizona Senate seat and the Pennsylvania governor seat.
Do you remember who my pick was from a week or so ago? Joe Biden. Remember?
Yeah, okay, that's not going to happen.
Well, it wasn't a bad prediction.
Look, the dark horse here, by the way, is Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota.
Right.
Who is a dark horse pick that a lot of people like. I think he's a bit older, though. I think what she's looking for is somebody her age, or younger.
Yes. Well, offset is the word you used, and I think that's a very important point here. You have to find a balance. It has to be a white male to offset the issues for some voters about her being a black female. And so undoubtedly the person will fall into that category. I'm still keen on Pete, but I also am interested in Mark Kelly as an astronaut, that whole kind of American dream thing, going into space. You guys love that stuff.
Military background.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the perfect sort of yin and yang here to Kamala. It's sort of like it's the Barack Biden, just that perfect where it just worked, chemistry wise. And I think a Kelly Harris ticket would really knock the socks off America. I think that they would really fall in love with both of them.
I want to talk very quickly about the debates, because obviously there's debates scheduled for Kamala Harris with Donald Trump. He's now backtracking a little bit, isn't he? And he posted, "My debate with crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States, was slated to be broadcast on fake news ABC, the home of George Slopadopoulous, sometime in September. Now that Joe has, not surprisingly, quit the race, I think the debate with whomever the radical left Democrats choose should be held on Fox News rather than very biased ABC. Thank you, DJT." So he's backpedaling now, isn't he?
So, yeah, this is going to be really interesting to watch this play out. And I don't see very many people talking about this subject, which is, are we even going to have another debate? And it's not going to be look, Fox responded to this tweet, by the way, and put out yesterday an invitation to host a debate with Bret Baier as the moderator, et cetera. But look, that's never going to happen. And for justifiably so. Look, Fox was involved in trying to overturn the last election. They were sued for it. We have all the discovery showing behind the scenes how involved they were with the Trump campaign and trying to manipulate things and lie. There's no way, and they had to pay $787 million for that. There's no way that Harris is going to participate in anything involving their network when they are so over the top in the tank for Trump. And we know that people like Sean Hannity are advising Trump behind the scenes. Why in the world would you go on their network? So that's not going to happen. The question is the debate that's scheduled now going to happen with Stephanopoulos? And also what's going to happen with the VP debates too, we don't know. But I'm very doubtful. I'm very, very, Trump is out there saying that. And then the next day he said, "Oh, I'd like more than one debate with Harris."
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd like to hear your opinion too. I am not sure that they will ever have a debate, but I'm hopeful they will, because I think Harris will do very, very well.
Undoubtedly, it would make great television. But America is not a TV show. We're not living in the Truman Show. And I think that this is a really good opportunity for the Harris campaign to turn around and say, screw you. We ain't doing any television on these terms. Because, as I said at the beginning, before Joe Biden's debate, don't legitimize Donald Trump. He's an insurrectionist. He's a convicted felon. He's a rapist. You are legitimizing his candidacy by stepping into a television studio with you and having him steamroll you. So I don't think Harris needs to go anywhere near Donald Trump until, the very kind of, well, there's no
I want
reason,
to ask you
there's no reason she needs to meet him at all.
I want to ask you your opinion of what I'll call a blue anon conspiracy. Okay, which is, a Democrat QAnon. Yeah. So there is a belief out there among some people that his own campaign, Biden's own campaign, scheduled an early debate because they believed that it was going to go badly and it would force him out with enough time to get somebody else in. That they intentionally sabotaged him, and that's why they insisted on an early debate. Do you buy into any of that?
No. Politics doesn't work like that. I think people think that politicians and strategists are much cleverer than they are. They're not really that smart. If they were, they'd be working in at NASA. They're just, politics is full of we call it show business for ugly people, right? It's like an industry of people who are just doing their best, but they're not smart enough to strategize 2 steps ahead. They just they fight fires. They spend their lives fighting fires. They don't have the time or the ability to take risks that are that far out. And I think it's very easy for people who are not in politics or have never worked in politics to have conspiracy theories about how politicians are actually and advisors are far more strategic than they are. Everything that they are capable of, they say out loud, and that's how it goes. There's very few secrets.
Yeah, I tend to believe you. Yeah, I don't think that was the idea either, but
it's the same as the conspiracy about Joe Biden being told that he has to step down. No one tells the president what to do. It just
especially him. Yeah, he's a pretty stubborn guy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we only have a couple of minutes left. I want to talk about this Donald Trump line that you kind of posted and suggested that this was really important that we kind of listen to this. I'll just play it and then we can discuss.
But, when I was building the wall, I said, you have to give us 28,000 soldiers. And they laughed at me. I hate when people laugh at me. I hate it. I hate it. No, it's so disrespectful. They laughed at me. We won't do.
I think I know where you're going to go with this. Let's hear it, Ron.
Every once in a while, the truth comes out of Donald Trump. It's rare, and whoever clipped that wasn't me. Really was insightful. I think it was probably Asen, who is insightful. Yeah. I call Asen my Bernie Taupin, right? And I'm Elton John, right? So he clearly, Elton John never wrote any lyrics. Bernie wrote all his lyrics. They were mostly poems, love letters to his wife, which he would give to Elton because Elton can't write. And Elton, created the songs out of Bernie's lyrics. Asen and I are like this, and he makes fun of me for saying that. But, he provides these clips because he sets me up because he knows where I want to go, And look, I've been saying this for years that Donald Trump, that the people on the left should not rage at Donald Trump. They shouldn't get upset. They shouldn't get mad. They shouldn't let him get under their skin and then they call you the snowflakes and they love the liberal tears, right? And what I said years ago is we have to stop doing that because what Donald Trump loves that. He revels in it. The MAGA movement revels in it. But what Donald Trump hates is being laughed at, being beclowned, being made fun of, being the butt of a joke. That's what he can't stand. And that's what I do with my Twitter account. My whole Twitter account is not whining and crying and complaining. It's making fun of these people. And you see him admit that right there, that's the one thing that really, really bothers him.
I have a couple of things to say. Firstly, I'm a little upset that you might be cheating on me with Asen. That's the first thing. And secondly,
we're Lennon and McCartney. Okay,
I thought I was your bromance. This is not what I wanted to hear. What a way to let me down on the air. But secondly, I think we've talked about this before. I've spoken about how if Trump was a candidate in the UK, just knowing the UK media as I do, they would have handled him so differently to the way the American media handled him. They would have laughed him off the podium. He is ridiculous. He's not the real deal. He's a fake wannabe candidate. He is a pretend president. He's all of those things. And because the British media, they're not for profit. They're not designed in the same way that US media is, where they're not desperate for ratings. And we have some really, some great journalists with a great sense of humor and integrity. They just would have taken him down to Chinatown, and it would have been so well done. And that never happened here. And the key to it is laughing him off the stage. And, I think that if the media had been different in the US, they could have finished Donald Trump before his 2016 campaign even started.
And I agree with everything you just said. And this is why the golf thing bothered me so much in the debate.
Right.
Because that was the perfect moment for this.
Yes.
When Trump is bragging about his golf, for Joe to say, come on, man, this is your own, you rigged it. This is your own golf club. You ain't no 22-time champion.
Yeah.
It was just the perfect moment. But instead of treating him like a circus clown, Joe tried to argue the point in a serious way, which is, this is why I want Kamala, because what would Kamala have done? She would have started laughing in his face, and he would have gotten furious. And that's what you have to do to this guy.
Yeah, I often dream about how I might interview Donald Trump. This is a bit of a weird dream, and maybe I'm saying too much. But one of the questions I was thinking about in my most recent dream was saying to him, are you aware that the words you just said in the answer that you just gave to the previous question are really simplistic, don't make an awful lot of sense, and to most people sound utterly ridiculous?
Well, that would have been the end of the interview.
Oh, I know. He would have gone by that. I would have saved that.
You would have lasted like 2 minutes.
Just holding him to account and pointing out that he is not the kind of godlike superstar that he claims to be, and unseating him, not because for political reasons, but for the reasons of reality. He can't string a sentence together. The guy doesn't have a brain cell in his head. That's why the bullet missed him, because his brain is not even there. It's like a little pea in the middle of his head. So I feel like now is the time with Kamala Harris in these debates, if she does do them, but she doesn't even need to do a debate to do this stuff. She can do it whenever she's on the stage, whenever she's making a speech. She can remind people that Donald Trump is a joke. And I think that will be very, very helpful. And that brings us very nicely into our final item today. And that is the Republican National Convention, where they tapped it all off with a celebration of America, America's strength and might, with one of the most significant speakers to come in and really close the show. I'll show a clip of it. In one hand, we have Benjamin Netanyahu, who's been addressing Congress today. Listen to this guy.
You lowlifes, all you scumbags, all you drug dealers, and all you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you?
There it is, Ron. That's what we're dealing with.
It was funny because I posted that clip. Was you mentioned the UK? I have a pretty big following in the UK and Scotland and England, and
it's mostly my family. But
they went wild over that clip. Yeah. It was mostly the Europeans who responded to that, which they were just like, "What the hell is going on in America?" That was the reaction. Like, is this really Hulk Hogan? He's still alive. Like, this is what you guys are doing. Every national convention, Democrat and Republican, there are two goals. One is to unite the party and make everybody feel good and pulling in the same direction. But the main goal is to broaden out your base. And you make the whole show and the whole production about appealing to the moderates outside your base and showing them, we want you, we embrace you, and we're with you. So what do? They put on Kid Rock, Hulk Hogan, Kim Guilfoyle, Donald Trump Jr. This convention was in no way designed to appeal to anyone outside the MAGA base, which blows my mind. I just don't get it. I don't get.
Well, because they think they've got it in the bag. They think that it's theirs to win, and these people couldn't organize a fight in a bar And so let them do their Hulk Hogan stuff. Let them do that, because that's who they are. That's what they think America is. And, I was thinking about that decal on the back of the truck of Biden gagged and bound. And I was thinking, A, that was probably very expensive and now a total waste of money. But B, that is the way that they want America to be identified, as aggressive and as violent, to incite violence and strength and male and masculine and testosterone and machismo and all of that stuff. And I don't know about you, Ron, but that is not the America that I live in.
With the women having, what you said, the cosmetic surgery, dressing, lots of kids.
Yeah.
You're right. That's what they view. That's the way they view America. And they believe that the overwhelming majority of Americans are like that. And you and I know that is not the case.
Okay. Listen, we have to finish, but really entertaining chat today. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll do it again next Wednesday at the same time. If you want to download the audio podcast of this show, it'll be available to you later tonight, wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget our sponsors, details in the description below. Please comment and like and subscribe and even join the channel too. And we'll catch you next week here on Uncovered. Thank you, Ron.
See you next week.